any illegal alien that comes in typically has to utilize an organization. And there's a multitude of different reasons for this. The two big ones I could think of are basically they have to pay someone to guide them through because the land border is vast and enormous and you can easily get killed through the elements and the weather and all the other things that are going on there. And you'll get messed up. You'll get fucked up. Like if you go and try to cross the border without paying the Zetas who run that part of the border, they will whoop your ass and or kill you for doing that. So illegal aliens have to go through some type of organization to be able to come into the United States. So how does this work? Well, let's say, since we're talking about Asians, let's say Ling Ling, right, decides, hey, I want to go to the United States, right? I want to go ahead and have a future for my family, right? So what ends up happening is he contacts someone in his local area, right, in China, wherever he may be, and there's going to be probably like a facilitator and or like a coordinator, right? That individual will put him in touch with someone else, and that person will start making travel arrangements. So he'll give them a quote, hey, it's going to cost you somewhere. When I was on the job, Chinese nationals were paying like $60,000 to come to the United States, right? And the further you are from the United States or the nationality you're from, if you're Arab, if you're Indian, Pakistani, Asian, Russian, what we call exotics, you have to pay significantly more money to be smuggled into the United States outside of, maybe a regular Mexican or a Hispanic from South America. So he contacts this guy, Ling Ling contacts this guy, hey, I want to go to America. It's like, all right, cool, I got you. He puts him in touch with someone else, and then he pays that guy like an initial fee, right? It could be a couple $1,000s, whatever it may be. So he pays that guy. That guy facilitates his next round of the trip where he'll get him to somewhere maybe in Europe or some other place where he's able to travel. And the goal is to get him into a transit country. Now, we're going to focus on, land border. I'll talk about maritime after. But let's say he's going to go through Mexico, right, which is the common place where a lot of illegal aliens coming through. So they're going to probably get him to Mexico City. Once it gets to Mexico City, because it's a very popular staging area, a lot of smugglers live there, that smuggler will house him for a day or two, and then, he's got to pay that smuggler, and then he's going to go to the next leg of the trip, which, let's say, from Mexico City, which is right in central Mexico typically, they move him up to a border town, let's say Nuevo Laredo in this case, right? Nuevo Laredo is directly across the border from Laredo, Texas, right, which is where I used to be. So when they get to Nuevo Laredo, getting ready to cross the border, they'll put them at a stash house. And they could be at this stash house for a day, a week, months. And it's contingent upon a couple of things. It's contingent upon, is it safe to cross the border? Is Border Patrol going to catch them? Do they have someone available to cross them over the border? And have they paid up? If they haven't done any of these three things, more than likely they're going to be stuck there for a bit, right? And meanwhile, while they're traveling and doing all this, they're in constant contact with their family. They're sending money to smugglers. They're sending money to this guy, sending money to this guy, et cetera, to facilitate that person's entry to the United States. Now, assuming all three of those prerequisites are met and they're good, what ends up happening is they're going to have to pay something called a quota, right? Which is basically a tax to the Mexican cartel. Now, when I was there, it was the Los Zetas that ran Nuevo Laredo, but now I think it's Cartel del Noreste when I left. I was there from 2014 to 2018. And there was a war going on, like with the Mexican Marines and the Zetas, because the Zetas are like a paramilitary group. So they're very strict. So you pay $1,000 to cross the Rio Grande River, right? And that's a fee that goes directly to a cartel. And I think it's also very important to distinguish that a lot of the times these human or smuggling organizations aren't necessarily cartel members. They might have relatives, they might know some people, but they almost operate a lot of the times as like their own separate entity, and they have to pay the cartels to operate. Now, obviously it depends, right? Some cartel guys are smugglers or whatever, but people always think that like, oh yeah, the cartel smuggle aliens. A lot of the times they don't from a day-to-day standpoint because it's a very labor-intensive criminal organization. I mean, you're moving people around, you're housing them, you're feeding them, you got to give them water, you got to be able to keep them in a stash house, you keep them with their family. So it's an enormous amount of bookkeeping and logistics that go into it. This is why a lot of criminals don't like smuggling illegal aliens, because with drugs, you don't got to feed them or house them or anything, you just move them. But with people, it's very difficult. So a lot of the cartels don't like to do that because it's a lot of work, right? So what they do instead is they let these human smuggling organizations specialize in it, and they just pay them a tax, and they get a cut of every single person that crosses the river and comes into their territory. It's a much more efficient way to make money and profit from the illicit business without necessarily getting your hands dirty. But anyway, so assuming all that's done, they cross into the United States. Now, a lot of the times when they have like what we call exotics, like let's say Ling Ling and his squad, he'll probably be traveling with a couple of other Chinese nationals. They'll move them all together, right? And they'll move them all together because a lot of the times what'll happen is there'll be one person that's responsible for that group of Chinese individuals or these exotics, right? So they'll move them together because they know that once they get them to the drop-off point, someone is probably going to pick all of them up at the same time, probably go to New York City, LA, San Francisco, one of these places where, you know, that ethnicity is, or that group of people is common. So once they cross into the United States, now the United States branch of the criminal organization takes over. So we have a transnational portion in the Chinese side, then we have a Mexican portion. Now we're going to get into the U.S. side. Once they cross the border into the United States, now they're dealing with the next leg of the organization. So when they cross, right, especially in the river Laredo, they're going to need someone to get them across the river. Once they get across the river, we call them a foot guide. Well, like, you know, regular people call them coyotes. That coyote is responsible for guiding them throughout the brush to get them to a destination where they could be picked up. A lot of the times, they're going to try to walk in a way where they don't activate the Border Patrol sensors. On the border, there's all kinds of sensors all over the place. And the really experienced foot guides are not only able to get the group across, but they're also able to get them across and navigate so they don't trip these sensors that activates Border Patrol where they go out and look for them. So and some of these foot guides have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years. Like, these guys are career foot guides, right? So their job is to get them to where they need to get picked up and then go right back to Mexico. Their job is not to get caught a lot of times like some of them do. The amateurs get caught. The smart ones get them to where they got to go. They're traveling with a compass. They know they have resources with them. They have a phone, multiple phones, and then again where they got to go. Once they get them to a highway, typically some type of, you know, rural highway or whatever, another smuggler is going to come in a van or a vehicle, pick them up quickly, and get them to a stash house. Now, on the southwest border, guys, it's not like up here where we have like regular police patrolling. You're going to see Border Patrol units everywhere on the southwest border. And that's because they have their authority on the border and its functional equivalent, right? Or it's called the functional equivalent of the border, right? That's why there's Border Patrol checkpoints. If anyone here been to South Texas or Arizona or any of these places on the southwest border? Any of you guys went through a Border Patrol checkpoint where they ask you, what is your citizenship? One guy. Oh, man, you're an Indian, bro. You're in trouble. I am Indian. Secondary. Did you put deodorant on today? I'm just kidding. So I had to, man. Come on, man. We don't got that many Indian guys in Miami. Come on, bro. I had to do it. So I will say thank you. Come again. I'll say, thank you. Come again. I'm so sorry. I couldn't resist. So anyway, so where was I? So once they get picked up, right, that person picks them up, and they got to get them to a stash house immediately, okay, because Border Patrol is crawling all over the place. So they got to make sure that they don't get stopped by Border Patrol, because Border Patrol can, like, stop the vehicle, do an immigration inspection on everybody in the vehicle. Hey, of what country are you a citizen of? That's the question they ask. And that's why when you guys go through when you're on the southwest border and you go through these Border Patrol checkpoints, they can ask you that question. Now, there was a time, funny story about this, where people were recording themselves going through checkpoints and not answering the question, right? This is an illegal checkpoint. I'm not going to answer this question. And I got a funny story on that I'll tell you guys after I give you this monologue. Someone remind me, and I'll tell you the funny story about these people that try to go viral on YouTube. But so they have this stuff. So they got to get, long story short, it's crawling with Border Patrol. They got to get them to a stash house. So they get them to a stash house, right? Once they get to the stash house, now they have to deal with the stash house operator. That stash house operator, a lot of the times, has 10, 20, 30 different aliens at that house from other people that dropped them off. And while those aliens are sitting there, they're responsible for feeding them, giving them water, giving them food, etc. As a matter of fact, one of the ways that I would get my search warrants sometimes is I would check the trash of anyone that I thought was a suspected stash house operator, because I'm going to see a lot of cheap food. I'm going to see a lot of, disposable plates and plastic knives, all this other stuff. And this is actually all good probable cause to establish that they are using that house and that residence as a stash house, because you're going to see, like on paper, when you do the check, 2 or 3 people are supposed to live at that address, but you see food for, like, these dudes are throwing a party every day. It's like, bro, I know you guys aren't throwing a fiesta here. What's going on? So that's actually a great way to get probable cause and a great way to identify a stash house. And they're all over the place in Laredo, Texas, on the southwest border in general. Whether you're in Laredo, McAllen, the RGV, doesn't matter. There's stash houses everywhere. Now, their goal is to get the aliens off the road immediately, get them into a house. Once they get them in the house, they want to move them. Now, the stash house operator is going to be pressuring the aliens when they get there. Hey, did you pay the next leg? Because if they didn't pay to that stash house operator in his portion of the organization, they're not going to be allowed to be picked up from that house and move forward, right? And this is going to be the most critical component of the leg of the trip, because once they get picked up from that stash house, more than likely they're going to take them north past a Border Patrol checkpoint, whether they get smuggled on a truck, a regular car, in the trunk, whatever it is. And this is where they run into a lot of danger as well, because they can get, put into a place or into a car, and sometimes it's really hot, especially in South Texas. They end up suffocated, they end up dying, whatever it may be. I remember I had one big case out of San Antonio where like 100 aliens were in the back of a truck in Walmart. You guys might have seen this a couple of years back, and a bunch of them died and suffocated, right? Because from the heat exhaustion, because the truck driver left them there at a parking lot in July. It just didn't come back, and a bunch of them died, and they couldn't get out. So this happens all the time on the southwest border, where illegal aliens are dying due to the travel circumstances, right? And it doesn't get reported often, but it's really sad. So, and they always get an enhancement if we arrest them and someone dies or gets hurt, or there's what we call an endangerment, which is a sentencing enhancement. So, so now that they're at the stash house and they got to get to the next leg, this is very important, because more than likely they're going to go to San Antonio, right? And the reason why San Antonio is so important is because, number one, it's past the checkpoint. There's a big checkpoint called Checkpoint 29 on Interstate Highway 35, where if the smuggler are able to get the aliens past that, they're pretty much home free, right? Because, like I said before, the Border Patrol is heavily concentrated 30 miles inward into the border and beyond. Anything past that, it's going to be satellite offices. They don't have the same capacity to really interdict aliens like on the southwest border. They don't have the checkpoints and the same amount of resources, the same amount of staff, et cetera. They're typically going to be assigned to like a local police department or a federal agency that doesn't prioritize immigration. So if Border Patrol is beyond the checkpoint, they're going to be far and few between. So they get to San Antonio. If they make it there, successfully, they make it there, and then from there, whoever's responsible for those aliens picks them up there, pays off the final fee, and they're good to go. And then they end up going to wherever they need to go in the United States. A lot of times, since San Antonio is right there on Interstate Highway 35 and 10, Interstate Highway 10 goes east to west, goes from Jacksonville all the way to L.A., and then Interstate 35, like I said before, takes you all the way to the Midwest, and you can get anywhere else you need to. Austin is an hour up from San Antonio, then another 3 or 4 hours is Dallas, and then you're pretty much on your way wherever you need to go. And then the interstate highway system is very critical for the smuggling of aliens, obviously. So that's kind of how smuggling works in the United States when it comes to the land border version, right? So, and then they can get to wherever they got to go. So Ling Ling made it, right? He makes it through. He pays this ridiculous amount of money to different people within the organization to facilitate his next step of the movement. And then from there, he gets to wherever he's got to go. Next thing you know, he's in Flushing, Queens, selling fake Jordans. So